Well, for thousands of people all over the West, catching the bus is their only way of getting around. But as Somerset County Council struggles to balance its books, they've taken the axe to around 40 routes. 9 of those ran for the last time this week. Ruth Bradley hopped on the 490 from Cheddar to Bristol to meet campaigners who are refusing to give up the fight.
Queuing for the bus. For Eileen and her friends, it's their weekly trip from Cheddar to Bristol. She's been catching this bus for more than 20 years. It's become a lifeline for hospital appointments and shopping. But this is the last time they'll board this bus.
Well, that's the last ever ticket which will come from this bus.
I will do. Oh, lovely to see you. You look better.
Their lifeline's being cut. The council's stopping paying for the 490, so this is its final run. For years, councils in rural areas have paid bus companies a subsidy to run routes like this. It wouldn't make a profit, but the council says it's socially necessary. Somerset County Council's cutting the amount it pays out in subsidies by more than half, meaning dozens of routes like this will stop.
If you try and get private transport, it's something like £75 return, and I can't afford that sort of money.
Shopping and go to dental hospital.
I'm diabetic, so I need appointments to come to Bristol. I can't drive, I can't have a licence.
The bus is packed for its final voyage, but sometimes only gets a handful of passengers. And with nearly all of them being over 60, they use free passes, making it harder for the sums to add up for the bus company. That's why it's fallen to the council to underwrite the cost. This woman, lifelong Cheddar resident Terry King, has become the passengers' ringleader.
Well, girls, this is the last committee meeting on our Tuesday bus. Don't cry. It's our last one at the moment, but don't give up hope. I got friends in high places. I've got a friend on the Somerset County Council now, and she's working for us, and she said, tell them all not to give up yet. And then hopefully this will come back eventually. Thanks for listening, and thanks for coming out.
And thank you, Terry, for all...
Conservative-led Somerset County Council refused to do an interview about its bus cuts. In a statement, they said this route costs council taxpayers more than £10 per passenger, and the council's still spending nearly £2 million on bus subsidies, prioritising routes for students and rural areas. But the local Lib Dem MP says the council's priorities are wrong.
The county council, you know, they've got money, they've got £34 million in their bank accounts for this year. That's for a rainy day. It's raining. I know it's sunny right now, but actually out there, in financial terms, it's raining, it's pouring, and they should be spending their money to help the vulnerable. That's what this is about.
The bus may have stopped for now, but for these passengers, the wheels are still in motion. They're putting their best foot forward and refusing to give up the fight.
Well, joining us now is Tim Gardner, who's the Managing Director of a Weber Bus. They run some of the subsidised bus services in Somerset that are being cut. Haven't you got a moral duty to try and keep these services going, whether there's a subsidy or not?
I think so, and wherever possible we certainly do try and aim to achieve that. But you have to bear in mind that these cuts come in addition to a cut in the bus service operators grant, together, particularly within Somerset County Council area, a reduction in the concessionary reimbursement scheme.
Do you think people over 65 should automatically get free travel?
That's an interesting question. I think we have to bear in mind that a lot of the people who use their concessionary card regularly are the elderly, obviously the elderly.
Doesn't mean to say they can't afford a bus fare.
No, they don't. But at the end of the day, I mean, these are the vulnerable people. I mean, at the end of these are...
Well, they're not all vulnerable. I mean, they might just have decided not to run a car anymore. I guess that's the thing when it's a universal benefit, isn't it?
It certainly is. Let's look at a different picture. What about the environment? Are we saying that all these people who fall within this age category should jump into their car and start polluting the atmosphere?
Bus subsidies generally have doubled in recent years.
I'd like to see that. It certainly hasn't doubled for us.
Something like £3 billion nationally. Let's just bring in our other guests. I mean, Dan Norris, it's easy to say, of course, these are vital services and they shouldn't be cut, but on the other hand, the council's got to save the money.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the unit cost per journey, and that made me think, well, why aren't the council trying to get that empty bus filled with unemployed people who want to sign on, and various other people who want to get around? And I'm wondering, before they cut things, maybe they should be investing and thinking of good ideas to get people to use transport, because certainly when I was an MP, that was a constant thing that people wanted. They wanted to use the bus, they wanted to be able to get involved, get around, go to hospital, whatever it was. So
the thing is, if you get the elderly to use the bus, they can use their free pass, so it's
well, look, let's be clear about this. I think we should aspire to give older people dignity in retirement, and we should give them the system where they don't have to pay for buses, because if they're earning good money or have earned good money, they've paid tax all their lives, or they're paying tax if they've got a large income in retirement, because retired people make up the poorest in our society, but also some of the very richest, and that's done through the tax system. What you shouldn't do is stigmatise people by saying, well, some pay, some don't, and then it gets very difficult. I think you should give dignity to older people, and that's and therefore this is a really good way of making sure that need is met, because it is vulnerable people, I'm afraid, very often.
Charlotte, what do you say to people living in isolated communities who simply can't get around anymore because the buses aren't running?
No, it's really tough, and rural communities really suffer from that. But there is a really difficult issue here. The councils are struggling for money, buses require subsidies. I completely agree with Dan. You need to protect the elderly who are vulnerable from paying for their bus fares. Now, if there was any change to the elderly paying for their bus fares, it couldn't come from politicians. We have to protect them. It would have to come from them themselves, saying we'd rather have a bus and pay a bit for it than not. But that's not something that politics can do.
Dim, do your buses often run empty?
Some do, and within Somerset County Council, at the beginning of the process, there was a consultation process, and we, as operators, we participated in that. But one of the first questions we asked Somerset County Council was, what is your strategy? What are you trying to achieve? And the response was, to save money.
Well, that's not unreasonable in these hard times, is it?
If we can work together in partnership to be able to achieve the longer term objective, which is to provide services to the vulnerable.
So what is the solution? If you've got one that you could
I think you have to look. There are some bus services which are being paid an awful lot of money to run around empty, particularly in rural areas. There are other solutions. There's community transport schemes, what they refer to as bendy buses, buses which don't run to regular timetables but to regular routes. There's a whole host of different schemes that can be used. Okay. At the end of the day, we have to think of a bus service as more of a mass transport solution.
Surely it's about meeting need. It shouldn't be about saving money. It should be about genuine need should be met.
And in order to be able to meet
as efficiently as possible.
In order to meet need, we have to think through and come up with a strategy.
You don't yearn for the days of an old nationalised bus industry?
Well, I don't. I'm not that radical.
There was one more thing. If we had a decent railway structure, suddenly the buses become much more valuable because they link up. We're really bad in the southwest at getting our fair share of cash from government.
What we need is imagination, because this is a solvable problem, I think.
Tim, we have to sort of let you get off our bus now, but thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you.